John. Good evening, everyone. I would like to welcome Rabbi Hershey Minkowitz, who will give us tonight's invocation.
Good evening. Good evening. By divine providence, I was invited here tonight to give an invocation in the middle of our holiday season. We just celebrated the Jewish New Year, and we're now in the midst of an 8-day holiday called Sukkot, where we spend a week eating in these makeshift huts outside in the outdoors. We construct them and eat inside of them outdoors. The purpose of the holiday is to remind us of the protection that God gave us during the time that we wandered in the outdoors in the desert in our formative years in ancient history. But this doesn't just serve as a history lesson for us. It rather serves as a reminder to us of how dependent we are on God's providence, protection, and grace. Just like our ancestors, we too, all of us, we wander the desert of life. And although we construct cities, streets, businesses, and homes, we are, after all, so fully dependent on God's providence, protection, and grace. And so let us pray. Our Father in heaven, from the beginning of time, man has known, as King David so wisely put in Psalms 127, if the Lord will not build a house, its builders have toiled at it in vain. If the Lord will not guard a city, its watchers keep its vigil in vain. So although we gather here this evening to build that house and guard that city, we know full well that without you, we have nothing. And therefore we ask you to bless us. Bless the work we will do today in furthering and protecting the mission of our city. Bless this council to be able to faithfully carry out their duties in serving the needs of the city and every one of its inhabitants. Bless us that our city be imbued with a welcoming spirit of kindness and friendship, that we look after each other in ways that make you happy and proud of what your children create. May we always gather and meet each other for happy and positive things. And may the United States of America, its allies, and all the nations of the world be blessed with peace and prosperity and tranquility. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. I would like to call the regular meeting of the Milton City Council for Monday, October 21st, 2024 to order. The city encourages you to review tonight's agenda carefully. Each citizen who chooses to participate in public comment must complete a comment card and submit it to the city clerk prior to the agenda item being called. While the Milton rules allow a speaker to turn in their comment card up until the clerk calls the agenda item, once the agenda item is called, no more comment cards can be accepted. Will the city clerk please call the roll and make general announcements?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'll be happy to call roll for the October 21st, 2024 regular City Council meeting. I would like to remind those in attendance to please silence all cell phones at this time. As the mayor mentioned, if you would like to make a public comment, you are required to complete a public comment card. If you have not submitted your card to me, then please bring your cards to me now. Demonstration of any sort within the chamber is prohibited. Please refrain from any applause, cheering, booing, outburst, or dialogue with any person speaking. Anyone in violation may be asked to leave. As I call roll this evening, Mayor and Council, please confirm your attendance. Mayor Peyton Jamison.
Here.
Councilmember Andrea Veerhoff.
Here.
Councilmember Jan Jacobus.
Present.
And Councilmember Phil Kramer.
Here.
For the record, Council members Doug Haney, Juliet Johnson, and Carol Kirkley are absent. Mayor, you do have a quorum. Would everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, next is the approval of the meeting agenda. Is there a motion to approve the meeting agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as proposed.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion from Councilmember Cranmer and a second from Councilmember Verhoff to approve the meeting agenda. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That is unanimous. Next is general public comment. Do we have any general public comment?
We do have two, Mayor.
Okay, general public comment is a time for citizens to share information with the mayor and the city council and to provide input and opinions on any matter that is not scheduled for its own public hearing during today's meeting. Please remember this is not a time to engage the mayor or members of the city council in conversation. When your name is called, please come forward and speak into the microphone stating your name and address and organization, if applicable, for the record. If you will please call the first public comment.
Mayor, that first public comment is Mr. Scott Reese. I invite you to the podium.
Mr. Mayor, Council, I'm Scott Reese from Reese & Associates, doing business at 13685 Highway 9, Milton, Georgia, 30004. I'm here tonight to speak on the large lot incentive discussion. So it's just apropos that I had a family come in on Friday who have just inherited a 30-acre parcel that has double road frontage, approximately 2,000 feet of total frontage. And we were looking at planning this, how it could be, and they were wanting it to be divided in larger tracts. And the largest obstacle that I foresaw is the city's current policy of a parent parcel, meaning the existing property, being capped at 2 curb cuts or 2 driveways. So in this particular case, the ability to put multiple curb cuts in, and with the foreknowledge that these curb cuts must meet city driveway standards, i.e. site distance and separation, but it would make these parcels much more palatable and allow this property to be subdivided. I'm sure you're aware on other instances where we've had subdivided properties that share drive, they can be interpreted as common developments, and common developments key in a lot of different guidelines and directions by both the state and the federal, as far as federal authorities, as far as erosion control and different things. If these parcels would be independent and be served by a driveway, it would greatly enhance the ability for me or any other designer to create 4 or 5 acre tracts without having long common driveways. Just in your discussions and forethought on this, I think that it would be something that, and it just really hit me with this particular piece of property, because it would really enhance my ability to create what they wanted in that. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Mayor, I invite Ms. Laura Bentley to the podium.
Laura Bentley, 2500 Bethany Church Road. October 21st, 2019, 5 years ago today, the Milton City Council passed agenda item 19-2021. The agenda item was to amend Chapter 48 to address fixed objects in the right-of-way. The ordinance amendment was reviewed, approved, and recommended by City Manager Krokoff and presented by Legal Counsel Mr. Gerard. The amendment passed 5-1. The amendment was utilitarian in nature. The purpose was to fulfill Milton's obligation to keep the right-of-ways clear and safe for the motoring public. With council's approval, we provided the necessary tools for the city manager to launch a methodical review of structures in the right-of-way, especially those made of brick, stone, and concrete. I am standing before you tonight so that this council understands the importance of that amendment. I ask that each of you ensure that the city manager completed that review and that the necessary actions were taken on behalf of the City of Milton taxpayers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, that concludes general public comment.
Okay, we will move on to consent agenda. Will the city clerk please sound the items?
Thank you, Mayor. That first item is going to be approval of the October 7th, 2024 regular city council meeting minutes. It's agenda item number 24309. Our next item is approval of a goods and services purchase contract with Galls LLC for the provision of fire uniforms and related accessories. Agenda item number 24310. C is approval of a task order number 3 with KCI Technologies, Inc. for final design plan revisions for the Freemanville Road at Red Road intersection project. Agenda item number 24311. D is approval of a memorandum of understanding between the Forsyth County Sheriff's Office, Dawson County Sheriff's Office, City of Johns Creek, and the City of Milton to create the Lanier Regional Drug Task Force. Agenda item number 24312. E is approval of subdivision plats and revisions. The first development is Nathan Folsom and Mary Silverman, located at 2175 Mountain Road. It's land lot 189, District 2, Section 2, a minor plat to subdivide the property into 2 tracts. Tract 1 will contain 2.950 acres, and Tract 2 will contain 2.080 acres with a total of 5.030 acres and a density of 0.39 lots per acre. The second development is 1785 Dinsmore Road, Milton City Park and Preserve on Dinsmore Road. It's 1785. It's land lot 528, 529, and 553, District 2, Section 2. It's a plat that will create 2 independent tracts for tax parcel ID 2244 00005280716. Track 1 will contain 7 acres, and Track 2 will contain 10.2737 acres, a total of 17.2737 acres, and a density of 0.11 lots per acre. The final development and the consent item is Louis Renault. It's 16500 Hopewell Road, land lot 249. This is a plat revision that will supersede the previous recorded plat in Plat Book 466, page 141, to change the location of the 30-foot driveway and utility easement. Says a total of 4.972 acres and a density of 0.603 lots per acre. Agenda item number 24313. Mayor Jameson.
Thank you. Do we have a motion on the consent agenda?
Make a motion that we approve the consent agenda as read.
Second?
Okay, I have a motion from Councilmember Verhoff and a second from Councilmember Jacobus to approve the consent agenda as read. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That is unanimous. So we will now move on to reports and presentations. Will the city clerk please call the item?
Thank you, Mayor. That item is going to be a proclamation recognizing October as Down Syndrome Awareness Month. Mayor Jameson?
Thank you. So we are honored here tonight to welcome Milton's own Nora Michaelis and her fellow teenagers in the Be Equals program that she created for those at Gigi's Playhouse, a home away from home for people with Down syndrome. We're also here to have a few here from Camp Joyful Souls, one of Milton's programs that we are most proud of that serves people aged 13 to 22 with special needs, including Down syndrome. Tonight, I'm going to read this proclamation. I'm going to welcome Nora and her friends to come up, and we will take a picture, and I'll present this proclamation to you. So this is whereas Down Syndrome Awareness Month occurs nationwide every October to bolster people's knowledge, enhance inclusivity, and celebrate individuals with this condition. And whereas about 1 in 775 U.S.-born babies have Down syndrome, making it the country's most chromosomal condition affecting people of all races, demographics, and places, including here in Milton. And whereas while those with Down syndrome experience cognitive delays, these are typically mild to moderate and not indicative of a person's outstanding character, talents, and strengths. And whereas quality living environments, good educational opportunities, effective work programs, and positive relationships can help people with Down syndrome live productive, fulfilling lives. And whereas Camp Joyful Souls is an example of something our city does for those with Down syndrome and other special needs. And whereas Gigi's Playhouse and Milton teenager Nora Michaelis Bequels, which she did Bequels, which nurtures friendships among teens, are also places and programs that offer connections, resources, special settings, and more for members of the Down syndrome community. Whereas the city of Milton proudly joins others in doing what we can to break down barriers, promote inclusion, raise awareness, and support people with Down syndrome and their loved ones. Now, therefore, we, the mayor and the city council of the city of Milton, recognize October as Down Syndrome Awareness Month in Milton and share our heartfelt support to the members of this community. Given under my hand and seal of the city of Milton, Georgia on this 21st day, October of 2024. It's just four of us. Let's all have that. Yeah, that's good.
You'll stand right here first, and then once you get your pocket, you can go there. Thank you, Mayor.
Hi, Nora. Again, go see my Nora.
Yes. Okay.
Again,
Oh, yeah.
turn everything around.
Perfect. That works. It's great. Okay. Three, look this up. Way. 3, 2, 1. I'm good. One, you good? Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Will the city clerk please stay on the next item?
Mayor, our next item is an update on the priority projects with specific focus on the large lots incentive. Mayor Jameson?
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Mayor, this would actually be Mr. Krokoff. Well, it's actually going to be Shuba. Sorry. Musical chairs here.
Yeah. Do you hear me? Okay.
There we go.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is Shubha Jangam, Principal Planner for the city. I'm here to present the update on agricultural incentives for large lot project. Just a reminder that this project was initiated in comprehensive plan, which wanted us to find more ways to preserve large lots in Milton. And when I say large lot, what I mean by is the properties that are 3 acre or more in size. This project aligns perfectly well with strategic plans goals of promoting the equestrian and farm lifestyle and of smart land planning goals. Today, I have quite a few new incentives for you to review and give me feedback. So, next slide. A little bit of recap, actually, first. We are doing this project in-house. So when we started the project early this year, we analyzed the current landscape of our ordinance and determined that we have incentives for the new subdivisions to create large lots. So our focus for this project turned to exploring ways to help the existing farms and existing property owners of large lots. And so the goal here is to assist the current property owners with maintaining the agricultural lifestyle. And today I'm actually, it should have been 8. So let me just, I have identified 8 incentive opportunities for, as listed here. I'm going to go over each one of them, and I'm going to ask you if you want us to pursue them after each slide. And then at the end of the presentation, I have a projected schedule for how we can actually adopt these incentives. So on this slide, we are just looking at the keywords here, but I'm going to go through this each one by one. So, sorry. Okay. So this is the first one, and I had shared with you guys this in July. This is where we as an incentive, we can allow the accessory building to be in the front of the main house for the properties that are more than 3 acre. And the response that I had received in July was really very positive. Currently, we do not allow accessory buildings in the front, but this as an incentive, if we allow accessory building and a guest house in the front of the main house, it will really help improve the rural view shed. It will reduce the number of variances large properties are getting, and it will encourage the new entrepreneurships. So we had discussed this one, but my question today is, should the UDC be amended to allow the accessory structure, that is the greenhouse, guest house, sheds, etc., in the front yard by right on the properties that are more than 3 acres or greater?
Got a couple questions for you.
Yes.
Is there a square footage? Are we going to do a minimum square footage?
So for the guest house, yes, we have maximum 1,500 heated square feet in the UDC currently. For the other accessory buildings, they are supposed to be subordinate to the main structure. So we don't have a maximum or minimum for the accessory buildings, but they are supposed to be smaller than the main house. Now, I know what you're thinking. If they have multiple of them and it's covering a lot of property, we actually have a cap of impervious area on the properties. That is 20% maximum for the properties that are not in the subdivision. So there is very little leeway for them to have too many accessory structures on the property.
Okay. Because I just want to make sure when we do anything by right, and I think this is a big improvement for people with large lots. I think it's going to help people maintain, have large lots, but I want to make sure we don't put anything in place that's going to jeopardize the rural view shed that we're trying to do.
Yeah.
So how about design standards? Where is that going to go?
As part of the text amendment, we will definitely add some language that will take care of the architectural requirement or, rural view shed in particular.
Councilmember Kramer?
Yeah, my question, first of all, I love this initiative. My question is on the 8 identified opportunities you're going to present. Are they well vetted? In other words, I don't do construction, so I don't know. Like, are these well vetted, and are these, I guess, adding value or the appropriate incentive to developers to do large lots? And have we pressure tested that?
Yes. So this is actually from our experience. As I said, we are doing this in-house. We are well aware of where, we always have issues and what complaints we get, or, what concerns large lot owners have. We always are in touch with property owners who come to us and asking for things, and they sometimes have to go through variance processes or things like that. So this is from our experience, and I had a focus group engagement early this year. So based on my discussion with them, we have come up with this, and these are just concepts right now. Once you like them, we will be going through little more details and through public hearings. So right now we're just touching the high level information, but if you like these incentives, then we're going to make them go through the public hearing process.
Got it.
Yeah.
That's fair. Yeah, thank you. Because I can give my feedback, but it's only mine. I'd rather come from the community and understand really where the value is going to be created.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
And I do think there's a difference between a 3-acre parcel that's going to have a by right accessory structure compared to a 15-acre parcel. And maybe we need to put in some square footage requirements that I just want to make sure when we do stuff by right, it's in there. And I do like this. I think this is great. I just want to make sure we get the details done.
I think that's an important point, though. 15 acres, this size, 3 acres should be much, much less.
Because if it's by right, we don't have a chance to review or,
No.
So we
it's gotta
can
be
move
tight.
forward with this incentive. Okay, great. Thank you. So the next one also, I have actually shared with you the next incentive, which was about the riding area, the covered and the lighted riding area, and I was recommended to 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 engage the Milton's Equestrian Committee on this one. So in September, I went to Equestrian Committee. I presented this concept to them. They really endorsed this idea of allowing covered riding area by right for the properties more than 10 acre in size. They didn't have much of an issue with the lighting, and they really preferred if the lighting is undercover. I think that actually extends the use of the covered area, throughout the season, I guess, So that's what their feedback was. And I do want to say that currently UDC does require the riding areas to be 100 feet from all property lines. So there's going to be a distance, even if they are lighted. So my question to you guys is, should the UDC be amended to allow the covered and lighted riding area by right on the properties of 10 acres or greater?
Councilman Jacobus?
I don't have a real problem with it being located on 10 acres, but I have an issue with just giving them the freedom of only being 100 yards from the property line or 100 feet. I think it's, if it's buried in there someplace, that's fine. But, somebody's liable to put it right next to the property line, which is right next to, say, a 2-acre lot. So I think that would be just too much.
I wish we had our 2 equestrian council members here today, so we might.
Okay, yeah.
But one of the questions I had was, I don't really necessarily have a problem with the covered riding arena as long as the minimum acreage, we hit the minimum acreage, right?
Mhm.
The lighting is, I think, would be considered more of a issue, I think, for
Okay.
a by rights. Maybe the lighting would maybe be more of a use permit, but the covered riding arena would be by right.
We can do that.
That's where I'm glad to hear what council.
Is there an acreage today that it is by right? And we're just
None.
reducing
So
the
right
acreage?
now, everybody, no matter what acreage, they have to get a use permit.
Oh, they do? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so 10 acres or greater, it's by right.
Yes, by use permit only.
Mhm.
So we were trying to cut the red tapes and incentivize
Mhm.
doing so.
How many use permits have we had on those? A couple covered?
Yeah, just not many, actually.
Okay.
Maybe once a year, really. Yeah.
Okay. I just want to make sure if it's not going to be a true incentive, I don't really want to put it as a by right thing. And I just want to make sure when people build it, they're building actual covered riding arenas for, they're going to use it and not do something else.
And I would make a note, I think, to differentiate about the lighting is that usually when you build a covered riding arena, it's to give you more flexibility for obviously weather, as well as possibly the time of day and depending on the time of the year. So I think what the equestrian committee was saying, they
really
want
liked
it
it.
underneath
The cover.
the cover,
The
but
lighting
not
should be
free
underneath the-
form, not without one. With
Yeah.
like ball fields have lights. They don't want just to let people do lighting without the covered riding arena, if that makes sense, because that's a huge investment, and not to have lighting underneath, which typically is,
It's kind of
pointed
required
down,
once it's
yeah.
covered,
Maybe we can have some examples before we vote on it or something, just to make sure we know what we're.
yeah, but obviously we
Okay.
would vet all this before and.
But-
Yeah.
So we are pursuing this as an incentive?
I think it's fine to add it for a future discussion item, for sure, and we can debate it on a new business item and when it goes through the process, because, honestly, I would like to hear what Councilmember Cookerly and Johnson say and
Okay,
listen to the community.
all right. Okay, so the next one is a brand new opportunity, and it is related to the home occupation. Currently, the UDC, that is the Unified Development Code, doesn't allow the home-based businesses to operate from the accessory buildings. And it could be a really good incentive for the large lots to get an administrative permit instead of a use permit for such a use. And obviously, these accessory buildings would still require fire to comply with the fire code and the building code. It's that we could also look at some of the operational regulations and the visitation limits on these properties. But it would be an administrative process, and the benefit of doing this is we are really advancing the economic vitality of the small businesses in Milton, which are often run from home. So the question is, should the UDC be amended to allow home-based business in accessory buildings with administrative approval instead of special use permit?
So right now, there is a use permit for that?
Yep.
Have we ever done one?
If you want to even have an office, it's really a use permit.
Have we ever had a use permit for that? Robin, I don't.
Didn't we just recently?
Just for the
That was for an
Oh,
art,
that
that was for an art studio, artist studio.
Isn't that a special use permit?
That was-
But
I mean,
Still a small-
so we don't allow home-based businesses to be in an accessory building. So I guess what she was asking, should we do it with administratively?
or a use permit, is
Yeah,
that what
but
she's saying?
Currently, it is required to have use permit.
Not for, in the latest case, we were able to put a round peg in a round hole because it was a artist studio that happened to have a use permit. But if it happens to be let's say if it's an office for an air conditioning company, we don't have a use permit for that. So only if there was an existing use permit, like when we just, no, there is, I'm sorry. There's no use permit.
We're trying to
for
give them an
yeah.
administrative approval process. We're trying to create as an incentive an approval process, administrative, instead of,
Instead of not allowing it at
having,
all.
or these complications of which business, what, and
But it was just fortunate there was something for that person to apply for. But typically, we don't allow businesses in an accessory structure. It would have to be inside the home, not to exceed 750 square feet or 10% of the overall house size. So
How
Could they
many,
do operate both? Could they have their home-based business in their home and the accessory structure as marriage? So it's kind of a slippery slope, or I'm just.
right. So I think that's something we would look at if you wanted us to pursue that.
yeah.
But
So as a pursuant effort, we will look at all the scenarios. We will get the public comment, feedback, and do all the due diligence in detail.
I think if you look at just the example that you just gave, like the air conditioning company, I'm okay with having an accessory structure and they're administratively just operating inside. But what my concern is that all of a sudden now we've got excess air conditioners sitting in the backyard and that type of thing. And how do we protect ourselves from that would
So
be
that's
my
something we
issue.
would look at, but there's a lot of stipulations within the home-based business regulations that kind of handle a lot of those things, like you can't have machinery or noise or outside storage, those kind of things. So, but we would definitely look at it and kind of apply it to different situations to make sure we're covering all our bases, if that's what you would like us to pursue. So sorry for that.
my only
confusion.
feedback on this and the rest of them, and it goes back to what the mayor said, is what problem are we solving for? In other words, if a builder's got a mechanism to get what they want and the mechanism exists, I mean, that's a good thing. Is this just reducing an administrative burden? Perhaps. Is this really offering large lot incentives to the masses? Like, is this the most value generated initiative that we're looking for? Maybe, maybe not. My only feedback is, let's perhaps focus on those 3 or 4 key drivers that are really going to influence large lot incentives, where builders will look at this, developers will look at this and say, you know what? This is worth it. That's all.
Mayor, can I
I'm
jump-
not so sure this one is it. Maybe.
Just want to just clear one. When we're talking about this is about existing properties, not about developing. So it's not going to be what builders are seeking to do unless, of course, someone's redeveloping their property. If you think about some of our large lots throughout the city, we want to make sure we provide them the best opportunity for them to be able to continue using that large lot.
Stay that way.
Exactly. So we're trying to find ways to be able to reduce costs, reduce red tape, and potentially provide other income streams for that large lot because they're now paying taxes based on their extra acreage.
Right.
There's more to this conversation that we're having right now regarding the home-based businesses. I think if it would be okay, we're going to definitely have to come back for another work session on this for sure. I'd like to step back from this one a little bit. I think we need to do a little bit more work in-house on the accessory structure piece. We do have many examples throughout the city where it's not a use permit, but people have run very small businesses out of their homes, and in their back, they have some little office where they've worked out of. And so maybe we could find better examples, talk about this, how this overlaps with the home-based business, also to clearly differentiate between some of the things you've been dealing with over the years where people are trying to start businesses on residential property, so there's no confusion there. I think if we could, let's pull back on this one a little bit. We'll do a little bit more work. Okay. If that's all right.
I would 100% agree with that.
Yeah.
Agree with that?
Yeah. Good. So the next incentive for you to consider is about the short-term rentals for large lots only. Now, this is based on our assessment and engagement with various boards such as planning commissioners, Board of Zoning Appeal, Design Review Board, and Milton Sequestrian Committee. We found that there is a fair amount of support for short-term rentals on the large properties, since they can provide adequate buffer for their neighbors. And right now, our ordinance is silent on this one, so we will have to add this as a new use and create a new administrative approval process. Again, the benefit of doing this is increase the economic viability of maintaining these large lots. So should the UDC be amended to allow short-term rentals with an administrative permit on the properties more than 3 acres?
Shiba, I just had a question. So in communities where there's an HOA and the homes are on more than 3-acre lots and there's an HOA, if the HOA does not allow short-term rentals, the HOA trumps the city rule, correct? Okay.
Yes.
When you say our ordinance is silent, if I have an Airbnb right now on my property, is it allowed
Legal.
or not allowed?
Currently, we cannot have short-term rentals in the city of Milton. I believe short-term rentals is anything under 30 days,
30
right?
days.
Anything
yes.
under 30 days? Okay.
So while we recognize that there are sporadic ones throughout the city, and this, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, this was one of the things in our comp plan for us to examine.
Yeah.
We need to determine what the council's appetite was for this. And the working group started thinking, okay, well, we're looking at large lots. Perhaps this is a great opportunity to provide that opportunity for some of our large lot owners. Again, we're talking about driving revenue for some of these larger lots. This might be a great example, and it'll also be less impactful than if it's 1-acre lots. Not saying you should rule out 1-acre lots, but right now this is us kind of dipping our toe into the water of the short-term rentals. And if you were to consider it for large lots, then we can include it. And then perhaps at some point in the future, we could talk about whether or not you want to include it anywhere else.
Personally, I'm not in favor of them. I'd be upset if I was sitting next to somebody that had 3 acres, you consider that a large lot, and all of a sudden now, every 3 days, I've got people coming in and out and doing who knows what. So possibly if it was for larger lots, maybe 5 or 10 acres, I'm just not real crazy about moving to the country because it's quiet and nice setting, and now all of a sudden I've just moved into, an Airbnb right next door.
Would you be okay if we have a cap on how many times they can do this?
My concern, that just makes more work for the city to try and watch and challenge it, but I'm willing to listen to whatever you want. I'm just not real crazy about Airbnbs for the people that came out here just to get away from everything like that, personally.
And I think what we're trying to do is, we want the people to stay here. So if you have a large parcel, we want you to stay here. And if you have a 3 acre, if you currently have a 3 acre parcel now, the chances of that being subdivided and sold are probably not, but it's the larger parcels is what we're trying to do. And so I kind of lean to what Councilman Jacobus said, but I'm also open to it if the details, if we can see what restrictions you are going to say, you're going to limit it and stuff. Just, I'm open to it, but I definitely going to lean towards Councilman Jacobus.
Did we say we have a sense on the propensity of rentals in the city today?
There are definitely some Airbnbs that pop up from time to time throughout the city.
Not large scale.
Not from what we can see online.
So I just want to make sure we're giving true incentives instead of creating more of a problem. And I think we've
More
done
work for the
I think
city.
we've done a great job on the accessory structures and stuff. And I think maybe we might be creating more of a problem, but let's see what comes up.
Right. So the next big idea is a vegetative buffer. Currently, there is no buffer required between the two properties that are of same zoning and same land use. But with this idea, again, no buffer would be required if the newly subdivided property is 3 acre or more. But if buffer would be required in a new subdivision, when they're sharing a property line boundaries with the adjacent property that is a large lot property, and they're creating the lots that are smaller than 3 acre, and the number of lots that they're creating are more than twice the adjacent lot. So let me simplify that with this diagram over here. So just for an example, if this is a property that is being subdivided, let's say this is around little more than 10 acres, and it is being subdivided into nine properties over here, 9 lots. The next door existing property is a large lot property, this one and this one. They will have to create a vegetative buffer on this side because the number of lots that are creating is more than twice on this side, whereas not more than twice on this side. So this side, they don't have to create a buffer, but this side, they will have to create a buffer. And this buffer is going to be a separate property owned by HOA. It could not be counted towards the lot sizes in the new subdivision. And this will dramatically change the way people are subdividing the property. I mean, the developers are subdividing the properties. The benefit of this is it will protect the farms next door. It will support the tree conservation and then reduce the density of the new development. So should the UDC be amended to require buffers on the agricultural AG1 properties on the?
Can you go back to the previous slide
Yes.
really quick? So existing property number 2, what if they want to develop just like the new subdivision next to them?
If they go into 1 acre subdivision or less than 3 acre subdivision, but the next door, they already have 1 acre subdivision, so they don't have to come up with another buffer.
So whoever develops first is
Yes,
kind of.
they're gonna have to suffer, unfortunately.
I understand what y'all are doing. I do think that is an incentive to create larger lots because it de-incentivizes the 1 acre lots, but I also feel like there might be another solution. I don't know.
Mayor, this is a direct result of what came out of a recent subdivision in one of our more rural areas that you reached out to me on. Trying to find ways that when they subdivided next to larger lots, if there was a way we could provide some sort of buffer. This is one we've been back and forth on quite a bit, and I actually almost used the same phrase as you did. So whomever holds out the longest benefits as far as subdividing their property, and that is what is being presented to you. But it would achieve the objective in some of our more rural areas if they are subdividing in a manner where we're seeing some subdivisions going on currently. It would perhaps create that buffer so the neighboring large lots will not be as affected.
I Makes
So
sense.
that's what the design was. It may have other unintended positives, but that's what it's designed to do.
Yeah, I'd like to see that kind of mapped out, subdivision maybe that we've done and what would look like in the cause and effect and stuff. Because
I already have one in
it's
mind.
interesting.
Yeah, I'd like to see something.
We did look at the big map. We had charted all the 5-acre properties and 10-acre or more properties. So we did case study before we brought this up to you.
Because it doesn't count, so that buffered section doesn't count toward the yield.
Mhm.
I could see that, okay. And how big's how thick is the
That's
buffer?
50-foot
15
wide
foot,
buffer.
okay.
Yes, vegetative.
I think that's gonna be another one, see what the details are like.
So you would like us to pursue this one?
I want to take a look at it for sure and just see what the details are like. And let the public go through the vetting process.
Okay, perfect.
Y'all good
So-
with that? How good? Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah.
So as part of this project, it made sense for us to look at the ag use exemption policy and streamline some of the things, starting from the definition of agricultural use, then what it really means to be exempt from agricultural, what it means to be exempt, and how to get that exemption. And we did this so that we can provide the benefit to the qualifying property. And as you can see over here on the slide, the agricultural use definition is here. It is borrowed from the state. Do you want me to read the okay. And then the agricultural exemption means the exempt waiver from the certain land development requirements for agricultural use that qualify for such an exemption based on the requirement stated in the application. So now we're going to have an application process, and then it's going to have criterias. And if they meet those criterias, they will qualify for the benefits of getting some waiver from land development requirements. So that's a structure that we have created, and we can amend the UDC to include all of this if you would like us to go forward.
I would like this. I mean, I get a lot of phone calls on stuff like this. As long as it's a true agricultural exemption, yes, for me. Yep, it's fine.
Okay. And we have also been exploring many opportunities for stormwater management that can help the large lots, reducing the cost and saving time and navigating options. So I've been working with the city engineer and our land development team to come up with some help. And we have found these 4 areas where we could offer some aid to these large lots. So the first one is creating a menu of best management practices suitable for the larger properties and suitable for Milton's character. So this would be a guide, basically. It will be multiple options of how you can do stormwater management on big properties, different low-cost ways of doing it, and it will be a guide. It will be published on our website, and they can just, the property owners can see the different options and pick the suitable ones. Obviously, they have to be reviewed by the city engineer at the end, but it's something that's upfront help for them. The second one is a waiver for runoff reduction for the justifiable sites, such as properties that have existing floodplain on their site. The third one is a credit for existing impervious areas for detention calculation. And last but not the least, more outreach to the land developers for education and engagement purposes. Now, these are really high-level concepts, and I'm happy to bring the city engineer with me next time to give you little more details on how this really works. But if you would like to go us forward with this kind of effort, now is the time to tell us yes.
Sounds reasonable.
Yeah.
Bring the city engineer for sure.
And the last one is really simple. It is to exempt the commercial horse farms from business license fees. We have checked with the finance department, and the budget impact is really less than $2,000. So this one is really simple idea. Should the business license fees be waived for commercial horse farms?
You do anything with Fulton County property tax?
That's only Fulton County.
So out of all of our commercial horse farms, $2,000 is all they pay in total?
Business licenses,
the
not the
business-
tax,
oh,
the
the business,
business
yeah.
license.
It's the occupational tax.
And are they charged are they on gross receipts or are they on, do you know? I'm just curious.
I think they're gross receipts, yes.
I'm looking at you, Bernadette.
To qualify for the flat fee, you have to have one employee only. Otherwise,
Okay.
they're gross receipts.
So if you're a horse farm with more than one employee, you're gross receipts. Maybe we just exempt them from gross receipts. I don't know.
Let us spell that out a little bit more for you. We'll break that up.
Okay.
I think that's a great idea for our,
Yeah.
if we're really trying to reduce expenses. I think there's varying levels of compliance there.
Everybody good with that?
Yeah.
Okay. So, so for the items that you have given us green light, these are the dates we are looking to start our text amendment process.
I think we're gonna have one more work
Okay.
session.
We're going to
Okay,
have one
that's
more, yeah.
fine. It's
We'll
fine.
need-
We can
we'll
come
need
back
another work session.
again,
Okay, all
a
good.
work session, and
Yeah.
then we can give you more dates. That's
Okay,
fine.
great.
But any other questions you have?
Thank you.
Thanks, Shuba.
Thank you.
Okay, will the city clerk please say on the next item?
Mayor, the next item is the Arnold Mills Small Area Plan Status Update.
Okay. There is no Adobe on this one.
Do you have it?
Okay, good evening, Mayor and Council. Shubha Jangam, Principal Planner here again. I'm joined by two TSW planners today, Nick Johnson and Caleb Rassicott. We are here to give you an update on Arnold Mills Small Area Plan. Before we get started on this one, I just wanted to remind everyone that Arnold Mill is one of the 8 character areas from comprehensive that are established in comprehensive plan. And the comprehensive plan is a big picture policy document for the whole city. The small area plan is a closer look at the future of this small area. And this is a priority project for the city for this year. And we have made a significant progress on this project. Nick is going to present the process that we followed and the draft plan that we have developed with the help of community. And we are looking for your feedback on the work that we have done so far. So with that, I'll invite Nick to get started.
All right, thank you, Shuba. Good evening, Mayor, Council. Thank you so much for the opportunity to present. I'm going to make this full screen so that we can see a little bit better. So again, my name is Nick Johnson. I'm a planner with TSW. We are a planning and design firm based in Atlanta, and we've had the privilege of working with the city of Milton on a few initiatives, including the comprehensive plan and the United Development Code. I'm joined by Caleb Rassicott, who is here as well to help answer any questions. Today, we're going to go over the progress that we've made on the Arnold Mill Small Area Plan. We're going to start with an overview of the plan itself, go through our community feedback program, and I'm going to explicitly talk about each meeting specifically because we want to show how we developed our recommendations. Then we're going to talk through those recommendations and conclude with next steps. So to begin, the goal of this project was to develop a small area plan for the Arnold Mill character area in keeping with community wishes and Milton's rural character. As you all know, this area of the city is very uniquely rural in the sense that it is a long stretch of corridor between Cherokee County and Roswell, and it has remained rural, and we'll talk a little bit more about some of the constraints that this area faces and the opportunities to keep it that way, which are supported by the community. This is the phasing of our project. We always start with existing conditions and try to understand the area as best as possible. Then we take that to the community and workshop some design ideas based on the scope of the project. And then we develop the plan. We're currently in phase 3, and a draft of the small area plan is with the city right now under review, and will be coming and be posted publicly in a few days. To illustrate our timeline, we started this project in February, and we officially kicked off the project with our first public engagement session in March. And that process lasted about 7 months, and we're at the tail end of October where we have a draft plan ready for review. Once the plan is accepted, or I should say, we will then work to implement it through some code and design guidelines. But in order for those to move forward, we need to know that the plan is generally accepted by the community and by the council. What you're seeing on this slide is a map of the study area, which follows the Arnold Mill character area boundary off to the right. As I mentioned, it's a 3-mile stretch of Arnold Mill Road, State Route 140, and it's bounded by Cherokee County and the Little River in the north and the city of Roswell in the south, approximately 520 acres over 100 parcels. The general character is, it is a gateway to and from Milton that connects to the surrounding communities, and it's uniquely rural with residential and agricultural land uses, forested areas, and some historic properties, notably the Chadwick McConnell House in the north part. Some other landmarks, the very north end of the study area, the Chadwick Road landfill is there. Closer to where we are today is Ebenezer United Methodist Church, which is one of the principal civic and religious uses in the study area. There are also a handful of parks and green spaces, some privately owned, some owned by the city of Milton, including Legacy Park, which is right there at the bottom line on the screen. In terms of major features, Arnold Mill Road's character is more of a winding road than a state route usually is. And we do understand that GDOT it manages the roadway and has talked about widening it in the past. And we'll talk a lot more about widening the roadway in the presentation. But this presents an opportunity for us to be thoughtful about how that design, should it be widened, takes place. So that's a critical component of this plan. The roadway is in need of widening. It's operating at a level of service of D, which is just above failing. And we have consulted with our traffic engineer on staff about the best ways to do that. We also talked with City of Milton Department of Public Works, and widening is the most efficient way to accomplish that. So we'll talk about what our recommendations for that are. There is no municipal sewer in this area, and it currently has a mixed low density land use. There are a couple commercial properties along the corridor, but it's mostly that large lot residential and some of the uses that are already permitted under AG1 zoning. Lastly, it is experiencing tremendous growth pressure from North Fulton, or North Fulton and Cherokee County, I should say. Originally, this area did have a visioning study conducted in 2014 that was led by the Atlanta Regional Commission. And the main objective of this study was to guide any new development along the corridor to 1 to 2 small nodes with a design-oriented zoning overlay, reserving the rest for rural, agricultural, and low-density residential use. So this study, we aren't seeking to update this study, but rather to validate its findings and then expand on it in a material way that gives y'all a roadmap for how to implement the recommendations that we lay out. So it's still very much a foundational text for this study, but we are validating and updating our recommendations. Some of the ones I want to call out right now are to respect the corridor's rural character, to preserve open space, avoid the standard model of development, and try to do something unique. And that can be done through applying design standards to align with the rural preservation goals. The last recommendation on this list, preserve historic and environmental resources along the corridor. Y'all are already doing that through the preservation of the McConnell House and other areas that we're hoping to continue that track record with the recommendations. All right, so for our community engagement program, we had 3 public meetings accompanied by a community survey. This is the schedule for how these meetings were distributed throughout the year. A lot of them took place in this very room, and also we partnered with Ebenezer United Methodist Church to do the design workshop, which was very successful. So the purpose of the kickoff was to introduce the small area plan, talk about the origins of it. We had a presentation followed by the debut of our interactive survey, which went live later that evening, and we had some discussion. The main things we heard at this meeting, loud and clear, was that traffic congestion must be addressed on Arnold Mill. It is the #1 thing that makes the area a little less livable, and so there was strong urgency from the community who attended to fix that. There was some support for new development, largely in keeping with the activity nodes that were proposed in the 2014 study. I will talk about where those are in a second. We did get some questions about extending sewer service to this area, and we kindly let folks know that that is not really on the agenda, but we could look into it if that is a resounding question for the community. For our survey results, we had a lot of engagement with the survey. We had over 260 respondents logging over 750 comments, and the support for keeping Arnold Mill rural was strongly reinforced through this survey. We also saw some strong support for small-scale downtown-style development, so you'll see that reflected in our concepts for the activity nodes later. But by and large, the overwhelming support was for keeping the area rural. So we took that feedback and we tried to design based on it in our design workshop. We came prepared with a couple concepts for the activity nodes and also the roadway, what a widened roadway could look like if it were to remain rural, but also alleviate those traffic problems. And essentially everything was received favorably by the folks who attended this meeting. There were some questions, of course, about density and about, what does the rural feel actually look like? And we took that into consideration and built it into the concepts. In August, we came back and shared our feedback with the community. And I would say that this meeting had the most kind of debate involved with it. There was general support for our concept in the north end of the study area at Chadwick Village. But we had some varied opinions on the Cox Road concept. There were some who really appreciated our attempts to keep it as rural as possible, but some who questioned the feasibility of the development that we showed, saying that it didn't seem to pencil out from a development perspective. But we, urged folks to remember that we have some constraints that we're working with in this area, and that the rural character, we're trying to work within the parameters of what we could accomplish. All right, so in terms of our draft recommendations, I'm going to focus on transportation, development, and design guidelines for these recommendations. Those are 3 major categories. And just to hammer home exactly how we came up with these, we really started with the principal needs that we heard from the community and the data, and worked them into solutions. So for transportation, the 2 top needs were to reduce congestion and maintain the rural character. And these were the proposed solutions that followed. And you'll see that carried through all 3 categories. The activity nodes is the same way. The needs are to keep the rural land uses along the majority of the corridor, but add new development befitting that character. I'm going to skip this slide because we repeat the vision for each one as we go through. So I'll just go ahead and reinforce that these are the 3 main areas that we're focusing on. And for transportation, we developed vision statements and then recommendations that follow from these visions. The vision here is to relieve traffic congestion along Arnold Mill Road without losing its pastoral charm. So our recommendations are to establish a vision up front for a widened Arnold Mill Road that upholds the character, and begin building support interjurisdictionally for that vision. And this is going back to what I said about GDOT's expressed possibility that there could be widening, and gives the city support or some a foundation to advance y'all's view of what that roadway should look like instead of following the standard playbook that might come about without a shared vision that's been adopted by the city. Additionally, while we think that is the main way to relieve the traffic congestion issues, we do propose some new roadway connections paired with the development in the activity nodes, as well as a multimodal trail, which won't necessarily alleviate traffic problems, but would give people another way to access some of the new destinations that we're proposing. So I want to stress again that this was developed, these concepts were developed in concert with the community. We had a couple questions on our survey about specific features of rural streetscapes that people favored over others. Some things we came away with were vegetation, keeping the natural forested character or farmland character of the area, a divided median, and wide setbacks. And they won't necessarily look like these pictures, but to get that information. We also drew from examples that we know of from practicing in this area. Y'all have a great one just around the corner, Deerfield Parkway. The one on the right is where I grew up in the Triangle. MLK Junior Parkway is right in the middle of Research Triangle Park, but you wouldn't know it because they kept a lot of the rural features to make it feel like you're not surrounded by office parks and industrial buildings. So I'm going to go through, we developed 3 different street sections. They all have similar elements, just different widths depending on how constrained the roadway is. Arnold Mills right-of-way varies between about 80 to, I want to say 95 feet at different points. This is proposing a widened version of both of those maximums. So this is section 1. This is intended for the most rural sections of Arnold Mill that experience the least constraints. You'll see there's a 30-foot buffer between the right-hand roadway and the classic Milton fence that separates the roadway from the trail, which in this case, has a winding character in case there are topography issues. Each concept has a 20-foot middle median and a 22-foot right-of-way in either direction, and then a 13-foot buffer on the western or southern side. Section 2 constrains it down to 110 feet. The things that are different in this one are the 30-foot buffer between the roadway and the trail is shortened to 16, or narrowed to 16, excuse me. And then the buffer between the trail and the property line, it would be 5 feet. And section 3 is the most constrained. These are mostly next to areas where the property lines come closer to the roadway. And you can see that the buffers between on either side of the trail are restricted further, but still maintain that classic Milton character with the fence and the vegetated buffers. All right, so here are the locations of our activity nodes. And these were the same locations, slightly expanded from the 2014 study that were validated by the community. As I mentioned before, the recommended land use mix along Arnold Mill right now, large lot subdivisions are supported throughout the corridor based on zoning, except in the specific cases of existing commercial uses and portions of the corridor that are within the city of Roswell. So we developed concepts for 2 specific areas, the ones showing on your screens, and kept them mostly residential, but we have some commercial, some neighborhood serving commercial in those concepts as well. So our recommendations for the activity nodes are to explore updates to zoning for these activity nodes that allow for more creative development while still maintaining the permitted land uses under AG1. You'll see in our concepts that are on the next couple slides that it really does maintain that large lot subdivision character, but everything is oriented in a way that breaks the mold of traditional large lot subdivision development. The second recommendation here is to design the activity nodes to preserve natural resources, promote walkability, and provide space for new retail and amenities. And then the last one is to ensure that the Hamlet-style development abides by and upholds Milton's rural character. So the Cox Road activity node, we developed 2 concepts for this. I'm going to start with the things that they share in common. So each one has 31 single-family lots. They're all 1 acre. Each one has a commercial village, although this version of the concept is slightly smaller with larger footprint buildings. Each has shows the 10-acre parcel that the city recently acquired as a potential park, but it could be something else depending on what the priorities are. Each one maintains a buffer between Arnold Mill and the development. Each one has a street pattern that connects Arnold Mill over to New Providence Road, not directly, but at least it provides some connectivity so that people aren't forced to ingress and egress in one section of the area. And each one, this one in particular, abides by, for the most part, the AG1 zoning dimensional standards already. So this one is more of a traditional subdivision. This, again, upholds the AG1 standards with the 35-foot road frontage, the 60-foot buffer from a paved road, et cetera.
Are those lots on septic?
Yes, they are. And then this second concept, the rural hamlet concept, adjusts some of the dimensional standards. For example, the 35-foot road frontage requirement is not met in this, but it gives way for some greater conservation of the natural resources. And as you can see, around the commercial village area, there's actually a 150 to 200 foot buffer from Arnold Mill, which provides further screening from the roadway and keeps it feeling a little bit more rural. By putting the houses in this configuration, it also leaves that middle section, which is a floodplain creek area, less disturbed so that there are more natural resources preserved there. And concentrating the commercial in this way also lends itself to a village center type character, but concentrates that in the front of the development so that people aren't disturbing the residential areas at the back. You'll also see that we've shown a roundabout in both of these concepts. That's simply an idea as an intersection improvement to avoid long queue times at traffic lights. We would need a more detailed traffic study to make sure that that's feasible, but we did want to present it as an idea. So those are the two concepts for the Cox Road activity node. Here are some models for how that commercial village could look like. Again, we're trying to keep it walkable, suburban scale, village style with some traffic improvements. The second activity node is up Chadwick Road at the very north end of the study area. North is to the left of this picture. That's the Chadwick Road landfill at the back. So this one, we only developed one concept for this because we worked in tandem with the property owner of the site on the northern part of the site. And this is less of a neighborhood and more of a kind of rural tourism concept where we have a country inn with 16 cottages and associated amenities, including a community garden and an amphitheater. We have 8,000 square feet of new village commercial and office, and the preservation of the McConnell Chadwick House has been taken into account. I don't know if you can see my mouse, but I believe it is this house right here, or maybe this one actually. It also includes the recent Chadwick Village plan that was submitted to the city and is currently under construction. That's outlined in the yellow. And way down the line, when the remediation on the landfill is complete, that would be hopefully intended to be a public park. Our last major category of recommendations are design guidelines. And again, we're kind of at a preliminary stage with this, but right now our current thinking is that we want to determine a specific set of architectural styles appropriate for Arnold Mill that draws from the city's existing code, and then develop design guidelines to ensure a distinct cohesive character for the study area. We did poll the community on which architectural styles were preferred, and we ended up with about 5 that we're going to recommend, including Queen Anne, Greek Revival, Craftsman, which are all under the Rural Milton overlay, and then Colonial Revival and Vernacular. We're actually taking out Gothic from our list. These are under the Crabapple form-based code. So our potential direction for updating the code for this specific area is to create a new overlay that is specific to the activity nodes, and then determine if new standards should apply between the nodes. So there are certain things that we'll need to look at more in depth for the activity nodes, either one, to, in terms of allowed uses, dimensional standards, et cetera. So that's kind of the direction we're looking at taking. I know that was a lot of information, and I feel like I spoke really quickly, so please tell me to go back if you need me to, but I'm at this time open to any questions.
And Nick, the GDOT widening the road, do we have any sense on timing when they would take that up?
It has not been scheduled or budgeted, so I think that it's anyone's guess, but I'm not as familiar with GDOT's internal bureaucratic processes as perhaps some of my colleagues are, but I think on this timeline, putting it in the plan will be a good step.
Yeah.
So I saw those developments. You've said the residential lots are going to be on septic.
Yes.
How's the commercial going to be fed, to be developed?
So-
Package plant?
Yes, the commercial, there would be space to have some treatment solution for that is septic also. It could be a shared septic system that is placed farther back, but they would also be on septic.
As long as the residential lots don't feed into that package plant, I could see that being a
Yep.
viable solution to commercial, just working on that one package plant, and the residential still have to do our typical AG1 zoning, typical
Yep.
perk test, and, okay.
Yes, that's the intent, is for the residential to be all separate. And there are other shared septic solutions beyond a package plant that could be workable too. So those are under consideration.
Are they
as
doing a
well.
package plant where the, up by the landfill, is that with the gas station? Is that what they're? That's all septic? Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Can
But-
you go back to your last slide of the northern node?
Oh, I just lost my picture. This one or the northern node?
Northern.
Yes.
Where we have the development that's under construction and then the new, why is there not a connect? I mean, if the idea is to make connections off of Arnold Mill, why are those properties not connected there? Right where you're moving your cursor back and
Yep.
forth.
Yeah, we believe there is septic over there. They have septic over there.
But he's asking
Right.
about
So that's where the
connection
drain
between
fields
these.
are?
Is that the
Right
drain
there,
field?
yeah.
Okay.
So there's no way to put a road through there.
Right now there is septic over there, so I don't. Or other alternatives, but
As far as zoning's concerned, I guess we'll be talking about that later. Those are the only two nodes that you are looking at, right? Everything else stays the way it's always been.
Sorry, go ahead.
yeah, zoning is going to remain the same. These are already zoned C1.
Okay.
Yep.
Other properties, they are actually zoned, these properties are zoned AG1. The only component that's missing is allowing the commercial buildings, which we will have to see through overlay district, how can we allow the commercial?
So is it fair to say you can basically build that subdivision right now by right, except for
This one,
yeah,
by right,
except for the commercial buildings?
yes.
Okay.
So that's a kind of nuanced difference between these two. The first concept, yes, because the dimensional standards are all under AG1. The second concept plays with those dimensional standards slightly to allow for greater preservation of the natural resources. So you have...
I've been down that road before.
This is different, Mayor. This is where we have actually tried to create more wider buffer along the Highway 140, which actually allows us to preserve the character of the road. So this is not really what you're thinking. This only we have pulled the houses up front, so the front setback might be adjusted and the width of the lot will be adjusted, but they're all 1 acre on themselves. So,
Yep.
we
It's
have
the
a-
devil's in the details, right? No worries.
we did make a point to make sure that they were all 1 acre in both concepts.
So no zoning changes would be required, again, other than the commercial aspect in the front.
Yep.
And I will say, I like seeing the streetscape stuff. I know it's great, but when GDOT gets involved, I mean, that's going to be a battle we'll have to deal with then. But like
Yes.
to your point, have this in writing now, what our vision is, what the community wants, might set us up for success, which I like that.
Yep, that's our hope.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Yep, looks good.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So as I mentioned, this is our timeline, and we'll be working with Shuba and Robin to take this over the finish line before the end of the year. So thank you so much.
Thanks, y'all. Appreciate it. Okay, will the city clerk please sound the next item?
Mayor, that next item is the strategic plan update for Public Works. Our Public Works Director, Ms. Sarah Leaders.
All right, good evening. It's been about a year since I've given an update on our strategic plan item, so it's a lot of information. I'm going to try to keep it simple and move as quick as possible. So I'll start with the strategic priorities, just reviewing what those are, and then I'm really going to focus on the objectives that relate to public works. So I'll be looking at those that we've completed, those that are on track, and then those that are experiencing some minor disruptions in the schedule. And I'll highlight the outcome measures that kind of relate to those. So as a reminder, these are the three strategic priorities. First is sustainability and resiliency. The second one's smart land planning and keeping Milton unique. And the third is acquiring, manage, and develop public land and resources. So those are the kind of the hierarchy of the strategic plan, as these priorities are the highest level. And then under each of those are a series of goals. So this is a clip from one of the strategic plan pages that shows the goal. And then within that goal, there's various objectives and then outcome measures that typically those are going to fall underneath the objectives. So as I go through the presentation, you'll see those terms used as far as what the objective is and then the outcome measures under those. Here's the overview of the numbers for the various public works related projects and elements that are part of the strategic plan. So we do hit all three of those priorities. There's 7 goals across those priorities that relate to public works or that involve public works. We have 2 in the sustainability and resiliency priority, 1 in the keep Milton unique, and 4 in the acquire, manage, and develop public land. So I'll go through, again, focusing on the objectives. We'll start with the completed and then move to the on track and the disruptions. And you'll see those outcome measures fall under those objectives as I go through those. So hopefully that's making sense so far. This is a list of those 13. Did want to point out we have 7 of those that are completed and are being tracked, so they've become operational. And then the others are just marked completed. Okay, starting in the sustainability and resiliency priority, this objective is to prioritize and fund environmental initiatives that'll make Milton a better place today and tomorrow. The various outcome measures that build into this objective and that we've accomplished, we'll start with green communities. That was improved from bronze to silver in 2021. Birds Georgia, that was formerly the Audubon Society, and we've formed a partnership with them. I've held some events, and they're actually going to be part of our phase 2 project at the Milton City Park and Preserve. Environmental signage, that is something we're tracking citywide. So just educational or informative signage at city property, and we're looking to increase that year over year. That is the top right chart. I know these are a little small, but just kind of wanted to show the trend that these things are trending well in our tracking of these. EV charging stations, we had 2 for the longest time, and there's a 3rd one that's come online. Those are on private property, so we do not have any on public property, but we have grown that infrastructure through the private industry. EPA mileage, this is for city administrative fleet, so it's more of the city hall vehicles, public works, parks, community development. And we have seen that number, that EPA mileage, increase every year, which is a good thing on the mileage rate. So it has to do with buying, the more efficient fleet and the right size for the different positions that need vehicles. Same category, this is in sustainability and resiliency, but this is focused on transportation infrastructure. So this objective is to alleviate traffic congestion. Some of those outcome measures are to improve satisfaction with transportation. We have two different ways we've measured that, one through the Comprehensive Transportation Plan and the other through the National Community Survey. And both of those between the previous year and this year are trending positive in improved overall view of transportation, as well as positivity rating related to transportation. Those are the bottom two graphs. We have completed the local road safety plan as well as the transportation plan. The next slide, I'll show you a lot of pictures on here, but top left is the speed limit reductions. We've had 6 of those since we adopted the local road safety plan, so making good progress in that front. That's kind of an ongoing operation to implement that plan. The next two at the top came out of our CTP transportation plan to look at how we address intersections as well as red lines, kind of those corridors with the main delays. And finally, on this slide is we're working with the police department to track vehicle-related crashes as well as property damage and injuries. And a positive note on that front is the accident rate at Highway 9 at Bethany Bend on the Bethany Bend approach, since it was turned to a no ride on red, has substantially gotten better with that sign. In the year, we looked at a year before the sign went in and a year after, and went from 10 accidents on that one leg and that one movement down to 2. So good positive initiative there. Okay, under that same transportation infrastructure priority, this is to improve conditions for walking and cycling. The outcome measures included a bicycle safety initiative that was part of the transportation plan, looked at bike routes, bike improvements, improved walkability. That one is something we set a baseline for based on the number of houses, residential houses, that were connected to either a park, a school, or a commercial area by sidewalk. And the goal was to improve on that year over year. So we set our baseline in 2021 at the start of the plan, and through our sidewalk and trail projects and through some new developments, we're on a steady increase on our walkability. And lastly, connecting to the Big Creek Greenway, this objective or outcome was about just establishing the plans to do that. And so this one has been checked off that we have that plan and it's moving forward. You'll see a later objective is to actually implement it. So once we get to construction, we'll be able to mark that one off. In priority 2, we only have one objective, and it is related to Birmingham Park as an equestrian destination with the improvements for the horse trailer parking, the amenities, and the expanded trails with that, as well as the equestrian usage that we've observed at that facility. We feel like this one, we can check off that it is definitely a destination for equestrian usage. Priority 3, this one was the acquire, manage, and develop public land and resources. So the first one falls under the main goal. These 2 outcome measures really didn't fit under one single objective, so they fall more under the main goal to enhance our passive parks. And so the outcome measures were to look at community satisfaction. We've looked at that through the National Community Survey, and then to increase space and trails for equestrian activity. Again, with the two projects we did in, I believe, 2022 with the parking lot at Freemanville, Birmingham, the horse trailer accommodation parking at Birmingham Park, as well as some trails and other amenities. We have substantially increased that space than what was there previously for equestrian usage. Same priority 3, these objectives have to do with some of the park improvements, looking at the ones that were implemented in Providence recently with the restroom, the pier, and the trail. Signage, this one bridges that same table we're keeping up with across environmental type signage, educational, environmental, informative signage citywide. So we're tracking that as a single item. And then lastly, the former Milton Country Club. So the outcome measure was to open the first trails. That's been done. And now we're already moving on to the second phase of improvements at that property. All right, goal 3 in this same priority is about mobility and connections. So this objective is connecting neighborhoods to retail areas, open spaces in accordance with the trail plan. So the same walkability measure that we looked at on the previous objective is also one we're using here to track our improvements we're making and increasing the number of residents that are able to be connected to those areas. We're also tracking availability of paths and trails, that National Community Survey. And the third one was looking at a way to measure foot traffic. And we had a unique project looking at one of the gravel roads and looking at vehicle measurements as well as foot traffic and any other users of the roadway during the same time period. So that is just a tool we're using to look at kind of how that usage trends. With the more vehicles you have, the fewer pedestrians during those times. Okay, this is also in that mobility, create a standing trails advisory committee. That's been completed and they have been meeting for a couple years now, provided some good input on different projects we've moved forward with. And I talked a little bit about the bicycle initiative. This one specifically called out looking at routes where the bicycles travel and making improvements to those. So we do have our bike route map, and we've started doing signage and pavement markings on various routes to accommodate some of that education. This objective is about arts in public spaces. So it's said to explore the creation of Adopt a Roundabout. That has been completed. We have 2 roundabouts adopted now. And you can see the picture of the Freemanville Providence roundabout with custom Adopt a Roundabout signage.
Sarah, what does that mean when you adopt a roundabout? You take on the responsibility of maintaining it?
So they can do various things. The one at Freemanville Providence, they came in and took out some of the plants that really weren't thriving with their right amount of light. So they swapped out some that just weren't doing well. The Morris Webb one, that adoptee completely planted it. So it just kind of depends on what they're proposing to do. But we do separate agreements as part of that adoption of what they plan to do.
Good to know. Thank you.
Okay, these objectives talk about, again, another one related to signage and education. Another reason we kind of combined it citywide and just looked at how we increase that amount of signage. And then looking at green spaces. So through the Milton Green Space Advisory Committee, which is in the process of being closed out, they really contributed to looking at how we acquire those and looking at other avenues to get green space in the city. Okay, that's all the completed objectives. Now we just have 3 that are moving ahead on track, and then I'll go over lastly the 3 that are on a little bit of a delay. Okay, first one goes back to the sustainability and resiliency. So this one was more looking at how we manage solid waste collection. And two of the items with that are, first of all, looking at our recycling alternatives. So looking at how easily things can be recycled, how many locations we have to accept recyclables, the types of materials, and then the events we hold. So we are already tracking that and have grown that program over the last several years, and that's what the table on the slide represents. The second piece of that is how we're going to handle our solid waste, typically or specifically our residential solid waste. So we have our recycling and solid waste management plan that's underway right now. And once that's completed, we feel like we will have addressed this objective 100%. So we're 60%, but moving on track and on schedule. Okay, this objective relates to interactive maps, trailheads, signage, and it's specifically related to the trail and bike system. We're about 30% on this one. It is a combined effort with multiple partners, including the Trails Advisory Committee, Communications, GIS, and Parks and Rec. So this just wasn't a priority one at the time, but now that the plan is nearing the end, we will be resuming work on this one. And we're going to be talking with the Trails Committee at the upcoming meeting on Thursday about some ideas for how to implement this one. And this is a Big Creek Greenway connection, but this one refers to actually implementing the plans. So the way the project development process works is once we get through final design, once we bid and award the construction, at that point, we are implementing the plan. So we should be there by spring of 2025. All right, and last is objectives with some minor disruptions. First one is Birmingham Park. So we did do some major investments out there with the equestrian parking lot and some of the other amenities around that. But to implement significant improvements to really transform it, in talking with some of the various committees, it felt like there was a list of some additional items to really take this to more of that significant destination. And those included a new restroom, a gravel trail from the main parking area over to the Birmingham Crossroads, and improvements to the old logging road. We do have some funding set aside, but as we're looking at the entire capital plan for the city, we've put this one on hold just to balance the priorities of where it's going to fall in the future funding before we move ahead with this one. Next one is identifying the appropriate usage for each green space. We're about 60% complete on this one, and where we are right now is the environmental analysis of the properties. We are looking, talking scope and fees with a couple different professionals that can explain and recommend and analyze our waterways on specifically 4 properties. We wanted to look if there's an opportunity to set up a mitigation area so that when a roadway or development project impacts a stream, that one of our properties could possibly be receiving of that mitigation funds. So looking to see if there's eligible components within any of the 4 largest green space properties for that element. They could also help us with anything to improve the ecological system of the properties and any areas to consider for conservation. Again, the 4 that we would hope to look for this analysis on are the Southwoods of the Milton City Park and Preserve, Cooper Standy Green Space, Hamby, and Lakapani. And last is related to the green spaces. It's looking at trailheads, signage, public education about the green space property. So really this is dependent on the prior one, as we know what sort of uses are going to take place on these. And then the signage has been on hold based on our updated branding. Just showed a picture of some signage we recently implemented at some of the creeks. So that's kind of the look we're going for with some of the naming signage, but really this just depends on the, like I said, the green print planning coming to completion. And again, sorry, that was a lot of information, but a lot of good things, a lot that are completed, just those couple that are underway, and hopefully we'll work through the delays on the others and get this all completed. So I'll be glad to answer any questions or go back over anything you'd like to hear more about.
Any questions for Sarah?
Sarah, the early one I had high-level timeline for the waste management project. I know the survey's out, got a lot of good feedback from a number of residents about us engaging on that. What does the high-level timeline look like on that project?
We're hopeful by the end of the year, we
End
have
of
the
year.
plan completed. So
Okay.
we'll be coming before you with some updates as we process this survey data and
Yeah.
get the information from some of the HOAs as well.
Perfect. Thank you.
Good stuff. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay, we have no first presentation items, no public hearing, no zoning agenda, no unfinished business, so we will move on to new business. Will City Clerk please sound the items?
Mayor, that item is consideration of a final plat. The name of the development is Claxton Subdivision, located at 15070 Hopewell Road. A final plat for 12 single-family lots, a total of 17.279 acres with a density of 0.69 units per acre. It's agenda item number 24314. Our Land Development Manager, Ms. Tracy Wilds. Mayor, members of council, the final plat for tonight is for Claxton. It is the newest Chatham development located on Hopewell Road, just south of Bell Memorial Park, and it's just east of the Homestead at Milton development. The site plan identifies the 12 single-family 1-acre lots. The total area of this parcel is 17.279 acres. Lot size range in from 1 acre to 2.4 acres. The proposed Claxton Lane is to be public, a 44-foot right-of-way. As with all of our 1-acre developments, we have an independent lot identified as a common area for stormwater and for a mail kiosk. On this property, there are 2 existing houses, one on Lot 7, the other on Lot 11. Lot 7 was an existing house that has been occupied throughout construction, and it will remain with an approved variance. Lot 11 will remain and has been remodeled. All LDP work for this development has completed. This final plat is for your approval tonight. I do have a representative from the development here, should you have any questions, and we are happy to take those now.
Any questions? Hearing none. So when you say approved variance, is that administrative variance, I'm assuming? Okay, okay. All right, open it for a motion or any public comment?
We do have a public comment. We have one, sir.
Okay.
I invite Mr. Scott Reese. You. Okay.
Okay. All right, have a motion?
Make a motion to approve agenda item number 24-314.
Second?
Okay, I have a motion from Councilor Cranmer and a second from Councilor Jacobus to approve agenda item number 24-314. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That is unanimous. Any council have anything to report on? No, just want to say thanks to Emily and Tom and the team for a successful carving and crab apple. We have our team mom for the Milton volleyball team, girls volleyball, going to the Elite Eight on Wednesday. So congrats to the volleyball team.
Good luck.
And we have Wall of Fame at 11 a.m. at Bell Memorial Park. So all good stuff.
What day?
What-
Bell Memorial for the.
Saturday. You can go to
Saturday?
volleyball. You can go to volleyball game, Jackson County. So with that, we will open it for a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
Okay, Councilmember Cranmer and Councilmember Verhall second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous.